Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you are in the world. Welcome along. Here I am yet again in the forests and the wilds of Suffolk in the UK. It's wonderful afternoon here. It's a beautiful, beautiful sunny day. Blue sky. Believe it or not, the UK does have those days, and we have another one today. It's crazy. So welcome along to yet another walk through the woods and talking about subjects that are currently happening in the world and my thoughts and opinions on them. So that's what this channel is. If it's your first time here, welcome along. I'm glad you're here. Actually, we get a little bit of wildlife over here. There's no point me showing you. I wouldn't think you wouldn't be able to see it, but there's a tiny little deer just over the back there. I'll see if I can spin it around. You can see. Just there. Hope you can see that. Well, and there we are. You've got a little bit of wildlife and me. Both are wildlife here. So welcome along. If it's your first time here, welcome along. Glad you're here. And look at that. Your first day here and you get to see a little bit of Suffolk wildlife. It's amazing. If you're a returning subscriber, all 358 now. I am amazed by the number. I am slightly perplexed, let's put it that way, by how many people have subscribed. There doesn't seem to be a view count going up, and what I will say is I have noticed in my notifications that there are people commenting on some of my videos. I am not able to reply to those comments, so please bear that in mind. I'm not ignoring you. I appreciate all the love and all the comments and the likes and the subscribes. I do, but what I've noticed is that quite often that the comments aren't showing up in my videos and I can't respond. So it's got something to do with the algorithm. Something's being suppressed. Maybe it's me, I don't know, but something's kooky. I have got in touch with YouTube to find out what's going on. I haven't had a reply yet, but just bear in mind, if you do leave a comment and I haven't replied, that's why. It's not because I don't like you, it's not because I'm ignoring you, it's not because I don't want to interact with you all, but that's what's happening right now. So today we're going to be talking about a subject that hopefully won't get me banned. I've already had a strike against my channel for something daring to question the narrative. But today we're going to be talking about something that is happening right now in the world, and that is riots and corporatism. Now I've touched on these things before. I'm going to be sort of going a little bit more in depth to them today, due to what's happening in the US, and not just in the US, but around the world, and corporatism as well. And I've touched on that before as well. We have corporations like Coca-Cola, be less white. Remember Coca-Cola, be less white? The corporations are telling governments how to write the laws. And if they don't, well, we're moving our company out of your country, your state, They're telling them. A corporation tells their government how it should act and how people are responding to that. So we'll get into that today. So first we're going to start off with the riots in the US, okay? Because anybody that's watching in the US, good luck to you. Under your leadership, let's face it, under every country's leadership is, it's horrendous. All of them around the world. I mean, here in the UK, we've got horrendous leadership. I mean, I wouldn't even call it leadership. I mean, Boris Johnson's just a walking meme at this stage. He dared to come out. This is our Prime Minister, off the track a little bit. We'll come back to the riots. But our illustrious Prime Minister here in the UK, Boris Johnson, clown, absolute clown, is constantly got his hair, looks like a nest on his head, and mine does as well at the moment. I'm not one to talk, but I said in my last video that if I could, I would go and get a haircut, but no, you have to wear a mask and check in with your government approved, to prove that you've been a good boy and comply with all the government regulations, the track and trace app, and I won't do it. I won't wear a mask. And I won't check in with a track and trace app. So it looks like I'm going to have to wait a little bit longer for a haircut. But if somebody in Suffolk is watching and wants to give me a haircut, I'm willing to pay. I've got money. Speaking of money, But I've got money. I'm happy to pay for a haircut. If somebody's willing to give me a haircut, someone in Suffolk, where I don't have to wear a mask and check in with some stupid track and trace app, contact me. So, yes, Boris Johnson, our illustrious Prime Minister, said the other day, he spoke and he said, I want everybody to understand. I want everybody to understand, in his typical Eton accent, that it's not the vaccines that have caused the drop in the COVID numbers. It is the lockdowns that have caused that. Thank you very much, Prime Minister. Really appreciate your viewpoint. So, that's the Prime Minister saying that. That's not me. That's the Prime Minister. I want you to remember that, okay? Now, the riots that are happening around the world, obviously, George Floyd tragically died, let's put it that way, last year. And there was riots then, of course, because the video that we all watched was tragic, horrible, and it looked like he was killed by those police officers. What we've been learning in the trial is he had vast amounts of drugs in his system, fentanyl and other drugs, and he died of a heart failure or a heart attack brought on by those drugs. Now, am I saying the police are innocent in all this? Well, you watch the videos. The body cam videos show a different story as well. So I don't think it's cut and dry. I think there's, everything played a part in that day. But the riots happened. Now, what I've noticed about all these riots, and it doesn't matter, we've had riots here in the UK as well, of course, for George Floyd, because the media likes to have a narrative of white supremacy and everyone's a racist, which turns people against each other. And I've talked about this, non-stop. It's divide and conquer, trying to divide people. The colour of their skin. I mean, really, if we can be divided that easily, it shocks me. But anyway, we've had the riots here in the UK as well. We've had riots in there, but you never see riots in wealthy areas. Have you noticed that? You never see riots in Beverly Hills or here in the UK. You don't see it in Chelsea or in Knightsbridge, for instance. You never see it in wealthy areas. You always see it in poorer areas. Now, they're in Minneapolis, Portland, where these kind of things are happening. And it's not just those places. It's usually sort of left-wing run places where it's like everybody has to be woke to be able to be recognised as a person. Otherwise, well, they like to preach togetherness and forgiveness, and we're all in this together, until you say something against their cause or against their wokeness, and then of course you're an outcast. So it kind of goes against that, But anyway, I don't like some of the ways that things are done, and I want people to come together as well. And it upsets me when people won't. They just, if you go against their viewpoint, they refuse to accept you. I'm willing to stretch a hand out to people who have a completely different viewpoint. I'm willing to outstretch my hand and say, hey, we can disagree on some things, it's fine. But to have this whole this dismissive attitude to anyone's viewpoint that is not the same as yours, it's not helping. It really isn't. So we find ourselves in a situation where you have all these people rioting. They usually burn down these poor neighbourhoods, gutting and looting stores in those neighbourhoods of people that live in those neighbourhoods. Okay, so Black Lives Matter. You don't care about the Black lives who own those shops, who own those stores, who are getting killed in these riots and these uprisings against the people who are causing it, and not the people who are suffering. So there was a thing that happened in the 80s and 90s in America, and it's not just America, it's all over the place, called blockbusting. Now, I don't know whether you've ever heard of this. So what they do is they'd move some bad elements into a neighbourhood, some destructive elements, let's put it that way, put in more liquor stores and gun shops in the US, but in other places it was just liquor stores and bad elements that they move into a neighbourhood. Cause trouble in the neighbourhood, So it might be gangs, or it might be more violence, or it could be drugs, or whatever it is that bad element gets moved into the neighborhood. And what happens is good people get caught up in that. And the neighborhood tends to suffer and goes down. So it might be the local shops getting burnt out, or it might be local shops keep on getting robbed. Those kind of things. And the neighborhood, all the good people move out, and the neighborhood value goes down. Now this is deliberate, okay? And then what happens is the developers come in, they buy all the properties for pennies on the dollar, and then they develop it, make it all brand new, move the bad element out, move them somewhere else, and hey ho, there you go, you've got a nice new developed area. What do they call it here in the UK? It's I can't think of the word. But yeah, they make a nice new area. It's all gentrified. Gentrified is the word I'm looking for. All nice, pretty shops, and the designer stores, and they make it a nice new area, and then they sell it on to yuppies, and people who want to live in a nice, funky neighborhood with the nice designer stores down on the corner, and lots of coffee shops, of course, because we need lots of coffee. That's exactly what we need. And these neighborhoods just gets rinse and repeat until it goes somewhere else. Now that was blockbusting back in the 80s and 90s. Now, what's happening in the US, and not just in the US, I'll come back to some of the other places as well, is you find that in areas like Minneapolis and Portland, where these bad elements are there, like Antifa and BLM, now there might be some people that are genuine to the cause and want to help people, but you don't help people by going burning out stores. You don't help people by going beating other people up. You don't help people by buying a $1.4 million mansion for yourself with the proceeds of all those donations. So what you find is that what we're finding now is that these poorly run states in the US, and we're focusing on the US right now, poorly run states in the US, the local governments need funding that the federal government won't fund because they run their state poorly, right? So then what happens is they have riots. And don't you think it's curious? I think it's curious that the George Floyd case is going on now, the trial's going on now, and then another white police officer shoots a black man. It's convenient, isn't it? And then we have, more riots and more burning and more looting because looting shows that you love the color of someone's skin. That really shows compassion and shows that you're really there for the cause, that you're going to go and loot the local stores of a TV. And I love Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, or Sandy her name was, I think. She comes out last time the riots were on. She says, well, these people are, they're stealing and they're looting because they want to feed their families. I wasn't sure. I've been a chef for my job, that is. I do apologise for the wind if you can hear it too loud there. But I had to come out here. It's a beautiful day in the forest here. Had to come out here, so I'll apologise, but not really apologise. It's too nice to stay indoors and do videos. She came out and she said, these people are trying to feed their families by looting. Okay. Okay. Now, as I say, I've been a chef for 30-something years. 33, I think. No, I'm not part of the Illuminati. 33 years I've been a chef for my job. I've never seen a recipe, but I haven't seen every recipe, so maybe I just don't know. I've never seen a recipe that requires a flat screen TV in the recipe. Maybe that's part of the Netflix and chill recipe that I've never made. That could be it. That recipe, where you have to take a bunch of drugs and then you put on some Netflix. Maybe that recipe that I don't know requires a TV that you get for free because you're worried about a person being shot. Maybe that recipe to feed the family. Who knows? Or to make a family, perhaps. That's the recipe. Now, I believe that these things are orchestrated to a point. Obviously there are some people that are very upset with what's going on, and they should be. But how do you, the way that you express that anger, and that disappointment, that upset, is it really beneficial to anybody to go and burn out or go and loot from local stores? Is that like Little Caesars? I mean, is that the best way that you can express your anger? Is to go and loot some stuff from a local store? I mean, I don't know. You tell me. This is what the comment section's for. Maybe I've got it all wrong. But then what happens is, if you want to extract money from the federal government and bring it to your city, your state, your district, how do you do that? Because, you've got to prove that you've got a genuine emergency, right? Now, what's more of an emergency than having your whole city or your whole city centre on fire? And then you get to, these silly ideas of defunding the police. I mean, I'm no fan of police, don't get me wrong. But, I can guarantee you that any one of you out there that's watching this, the first person you're going to call if someone's breaking into your house or doing something to you is the police. You will, Who else are you going to call? Your neighbour next door? Oh yeah, come over here, help me. Someone's punching me in the face. Well, maybe your neighbour would be there anyway, but, this whole idea of defunding the police, I think it comes down to accountability. At the end of the day, accountability, there's a reason why all these police officers have body cams now. Because it makes them accountable for their actions, because it's not one person's word against another, which it shouldn't be, because let's face it, if I was to go to court and it was my word against a police officer, I can guarantee who the court's word would take, and it wouldn't be me. So I think that there's an element of these districts, these states, wanting to extract money from the public purse. And then what happens is, the corruption is so deep, is that you have these local councillors give these contracts out to people they know. Matt Hancock and his £12.5 million contract that he awarded to a friend of his for the PPE for the NHS. Thanks, Matt Hancock. It's this kind of corruption where you have the money coming in to rebuild the local area, and then it gets filtered out to who? To the friends of the politicians who have, might well have played a hand in this. Look, I don't want to cast any dispersions and say that that's true, but it just seems awfully convenient, don't you think? Now, then we see, now that's the US. Now we've had, we've got riots in Hong Kong. Well, not really riots, but protests. Brazil. We've been told everyone's dying in Brazil, but are they? People are standing up against the authorities in Brazil and saying no more lockdowns. This is ridiculous. You can't keep treating us like this. But we're hearing, the Brazilian strain, everyone's dying. Speak to someone in Brazil. We see people on the Copacabana beach. The police come down and try and hassle some people. Everyone on the beach turned on the coppers. And look, I don't want to see this happen. I don't want to see the police get into trouble. I don't want to see, violence against them. But at the same time, if the police keep on doing what they're doing, and they're treating people the way they treat people, it's going to turn bad. I don't want to see that happen. But people are eventually going to stand up for themselves, and it's not going to end well. More people are going to get shot by the police because the police are going to be nervous. They're going to be on edge, going into every situation thinking that they're going to get killed. And then, people are going to be more nervous because this media hype is just so outrageous that people are so fearful of the police, going out and standing and raising their voices against what's going on, thinking they're getting beaten down by the police. So it creates this tension between people and police. And it's all over the world. Now, what happened in the Netherlands, where people were protesting, the police came in with horses and ran them over. You've got water cannons all over the place. You've got people in Belgium, who are rising up against the police. This situation, we're at a knife edge right now, and we have to have some cool heads amongst us, not rioting and burning and looting, but we have to have some cool heads and stand up And we have to stand up, people with a half a brain in our heads, and stand in place for these local government positions to try and change things ourselves, because if we can't rely on the current leadership, then we have to change it. So in the future, not too far in the future I would hope, I'm going to be doing an interview, my first interview for this channel, with a gentleman called Paul, who is doing exactly that. I'm not going to get too much into the story. I have to confirm dates and everything with Paul to do the interview, but that will be coming in the near future, so look out for that, an interview with someone. And Paul's awesome, great guy. I think you'll like him. Now, look at this place. I mean, really, look where I live. It's awesome. Now, corporatism. Let's go there. So, look, riots all over the world. We've touched on all that. What they mean. Who's instigating it? There are instigators in the crowd. You know, I think there are genuine people out there who want to sort of raise their voices for change, and that's great. That's awesome, and we all should do that. But rioting and looting, I think there's instigators in the crowd that get people who are genuinely upset riled up, and then it turns bad. Quickly the mob mentality comes out, and we end up with people getting shot, people getting killed. Not a good situation for anybody involved. So there are instigators paid for instigators, paid for by individuals like George Soros. He's open society, operate all over the world. That's not conspiracy. That is fact, 100% fact. And you can track the money. You can track it everywhere. And it's his billions are being used to alter our society the way that he believes it should be. Beautiful little vista I have here. Now we get into the next subject, which is corporatism. Now, corporatism I've touched on before, as I've said, that you have corporations, massive corporations that decide how they want the world to be. Now, a lot of this comes from Davos, which is a big, it's a week-long meeting, I think, over in Davos in Switzerland, where the corporate elites of the world, the millionaires and billionaires, and the corporate heads and government leaders, supposed to be leaders, go and discuss how they want the vision of the world to be, without consultation of the public, of course. They go there and they decide how we're going to live. Now, the latest trend that they're all hit on is climate change. And if you saw the Project Veritas video about the gentleman who works at CNN admitting that they're going to be focusing all their energy on climate change and creating fear, and there's a lot of corporates now are going to are swapping to the message of climate emergency rather than climate change. Remember when it used to be global warming, and then it was climate change, and now it's climate emergency. And it is deliberate, and it is part of this elite plan that is cooked up by the World Economic Forum in Davos in Switzerland, where they meet every year and they decide how things are going to be. Now, it's playing out spectacularly in the US right now, where you have states like Georgia that their election laws for the 2020 election were changed not by the legislators who are supposed to create the laws and the voting laws for the state, but by the governors of the state, illegally. Now the legislators are taking back that power, of course, and the corporate elite. There was a Zoom call just the other day where you had 100 of the CEOs of top companies in the US, Delta Airlines and Coca-Cola and the like, where they got together on a Zoom call to figure out how they could punish the state of Georgia for bringing back their election laws to how they were prior to the election, right? So literally just reinstating the laws and ensuring that they're in place the way that the Constitution said they should be. Okay, you have to produce ID to show who you are when you vote. I mean, that seems like a pretty basic thing to do. Everywhere I've lived, I live here in the UK now, I'm from Australia. When you go to vote, you show your ID. Then you get ticked off the roll and then you go and vote. Now, how How anybody could think that's a bad idea is beyond me. Oh yes, but black people can't get IDs. Really? How do they drive? How do black people drive? How do they have a driver's license if they haven't got ID? What about buying alcohol? Don't you need an ID to buy alcohol? So no black person's ever bought alcohol before. And then the suggestion is that black people are too silly to be able to work out where to go and get ID. I mean, that's racist. This is coming from the very people that are supposed to be stopping racism or telling us they're stopping racism. But these corporate companies are trying to, I think there was a big baseball tournament that was cancelled in Georgia. They were moving it somewhere else because, well, Georgia's racist. Now, these companies, they call themselves woke. It's ridiculous. But these companies are now feeling the force of the buying public who spend their money with these companies. Coca-Cola, for instance. Their sales are dropping. People are like, well, you know what? If that's the way you want to act, then we just won't buy your products. I've said it before. We have the power. We, the people, have the power to change the things that the government is there to serve us. It's not there to serve the corporate masters that pay for these politicians to be in the positions where they are. And I don't care where you are in the world. In America, it's much more obvious because there's been talk about every politician should have to wear a jacket like the NASCAR drivers do with all their sponsors on. I think it's a great idea. But it doesn't matter where you are in the world. The corporates, massive corporations, bankers, these kind of scumbags are lining the pockets of these politicians, getting them into power so that they can serve them. And what's obvious is what's going on with these corporations are trying to influence the political powers by saying, well, this is how we're going to do it. We're just not going to operate in your state. Now, the power ultimately is with us. And, there's a saying out there, get woke, go broke, and Qantas Airlines in Australia did exactly that. Sorry, you can't fly with us if you don't have a vaccine. Okay. Sorry, Qantas, I won't fly with you ever again. You're dead to me. I'm done. I will never ever spend money with your airline again or any of your affiliate airlines. Sorry, won't do it. If there's a company out there that's going to start an airline where they mandate no one that can fly with them has had a vaccine, that's where I'll be spending my money. I won't take a step down the road of allowing a corporation to tell me how I should live. I'm not doing it. Now, what I want to leave you with here is the world is changing before our eyes. Now, we have a say in how it goes from here on. It's our choice. It's we, the consumer. It's our money that chooses. Because if you don't like the way things are going and you have these corporations that are trying to get in the way and trying to change things the way that they want it to benefit their vision of how the world should be, don't spend your money with them. It's really simple. If you don't like what Coca-Cola's doing, then just say it with your dollars, say it with your pounds, say it with wherever you are in the world. You don't like what they're doing? Fine, just don't buy their products anymore. I'm not going to single out Coca-Cola, even though their product is, I haven't drank Coca-Cola in many years now. I gave it up a good 10 years ago. It's toxic. But, if you like it, then go ahead and drink it. But, understand that these corporates are trying to influence the world the way that they want it. And if you align with that, then, who am I to argue with you? Go and do whatever you want to do. But we get to choose with our dollars, with our money, and we control the world, not them. And we've got to this point now where we've just given away our power for so long to people that don't have our best interests at heart, but we can take it back at any point. Now, I'll leave you with a final message. Look around you. Look around you at the people around you. Talk with them. This whole lockdown has taken us away from being able to interact with each other, which is why I started this YouTube channel, so I could talk to a wider audience out there. And hopefully we could start a conversation in the comment section. Obviously that's been throttled. I have no idea why. But look, talk to each other, get together with people and discuss ideas, because discussing ideas is how we come to a sort of a middle ground that we can all work with, rather than these extremes that we're going to that don't work for anybody. They really don't. There's extreme left or extreme right, it doesn't matter. It's toxic for the whole world. We have to come together and work against these people that are trying to divide us. All that said, go out there, look after yourself, get out into nature, get some fresh air, look after each other, and I shall look forward to speaking to you real soon. Bye for now.